Hey, we pulling? What's up? I'm Jim Fro, and we got a massive sponsor for this video. Big shout out to Rested XP for not only sponsoring the video, but for being the absolute best way to level in World of Warcraft. If you're playing TBC Classic Anniversary while waiting for midnight, use our link in the description or pinned comment for 10% off all of their guides. You will not regret it. Now, after weeks of deep diving into every boss on the PTR, we wanted to give you a quick preview of what to expect coming in Midnight Season 1. For those of you who want to give their guild a little head start at raid prepping, early access to our official raid guides are actually starting to drop on Patreon today. We'll be releasing more over the next few weeks, so check out patreon.com/readycheckpull for early access. So, let's start with the Voidspire, and the first boss you'll face there is Imperior Averian. The boss room is basically a 9-zone tic-tac-toe board, and the whole idea of the fight is to play reverse tic-tac-toe and never let 3 adjacent zones get claimed or you're dead. You start the fight by tanking the boss in the middle zone, and the boss will spawn 3 adds on random zones around the room. The adds are trying to claim the zone by opening some portals, and to stop them from claiming the zones, you need to use the group soak that the boss puts on the tank. You put the first soak on the first add, and boom, he gone. You put the next soak on the second ad and boom, he gone too. You always have 1 ad left over, and that's the claimed zone. That leftover ad needs to be killed away from the boss along with any smaller ads that spawned from the portals. You'll do this a bunch of times, but eventually you'll just run out of zones since, again, you can't ever have 3 adjacent claim zones next to each other at the same time. Toward the end of the fight, there will be a bunch of smaller ads coming through the portals, so the AoE and cleave damage should get pretty big. There's a few other mechanics that we'll go over in more detail in the official guide, like some swirlies that need to be dodged, and a bunch of spikes that shoot out from the boss. But the ad management is pretty much the whole fight. For a first boss, I enjoyed this one. Now, the second boss in the Voidspire is Verassius. This dude 100% skip leg day and has arms for nips. Verassius is stationary and really only has a few mechanics. The first is a big tank smash that also spawns a wall on either the left or the right side of the room. The walls are important because he'll eventually do a giant beam from one wall all the way to the next wall that basically one-shots anyone that gets hit by it, and if both walls are up, you are guaranteed to be hit by it. The boss will also spawn some ads that fixate players. The ads need to be kited and killed on top of the wall because once 2 of them die on the wall will break, allowing you to run safely from the beam. What makes this a little more challenging is that you don't know which way the beam is going to go, so you'll need to make sure 2 ads die on the left wall and 2 ads die on the right wall, so both walls are broken just in case the boss tries to do some trickery. That's really the main part of the fight. There's also a few wash your feet moments too, like the tank smash also causing a staggering circle explosion and so on. For the third boss of the Voidspire, we're fighting Saladar again, but this time he's the Fallen King because he found out what happens when you mess with the homies. The main loop of the fight starts when Saladar spawns these orbs around the room that slowly move toward him. Everyone needs to quickly swap to the orbs because if they get to the boss, you're dead. The boss also spawns some fractured images that start casting. If the cast goes off, it puts a big dot on the raid, but these images can be interrupted, CC, stunned, gripped, and everything else to stop them from casting. There's also some get out of the raid style stars that go out on players and do damage to anyone hit by them. And the last mechanic of the phase is when the boss hits 100 energy, he shoots out 5 rotating beams, does a bunch of ticking damage, but most importantly, he takes 25% increased damage the whole time the beams are going out. So this is big damage city where you pop everything and just nuke the boss. Once he's finished beaming, he drops a giant pool right under his feet and then repeats the whole fight again. The fourth boss encounter is where things start to really ramp up. We're fighting 2 void dragons, Gore and Azerak. They take turns being grounded or flying, but they're both always active at the same time and need to stay within 10% HP of each other at all times. Gore puts null beam on his current tank that needs to be pointed away from the raid and then soaked. When the null beam ends, Gore puts null zone under the tank and everyone has to run away from the null zone to break their tethers. Gore also targets a random player with a big old dragon breath frontal. After a few seconds, the targeted player and anyone else inside of the breath will be feared for what feels like a lifetime. But the fear can be dispelled, so there's that. Azerak has 2 main mechanics. The first is Void Howl. It puts spread circles on everyone and spawns a Void Orb for each player. These Void Orbs need to be interrupted, gripped, and grouped to be AoE down. Double Blood DK might be absolutely busted here. The second is Gloom, a swirly orb that the boss shoots out in front of her. This needs to be soaked by several players to shrink it before it hits the wall. What surprised us is that it can also hit a previous orb, so you'll want to make sure the boss is faced away from the previous orb before she shoots the next orb. When they hit the wall, they take up a bunch of space, so shrinking them before they hit the wall is super important. When the bosses reach 100 energy, they fly up and blast the raid with heavy shadow damage. A Brother of the Light shows up and drops a huge protection barrier for the raid. While standing in the barrier, everyone needs to focus on killing the big ad who fixates a random player and targets other players with an explosion circle. After a set time, the bosses will become active and you just start phase 1 again. Whichever boss is landed does more of their mechanics over the flying one, but it's all roughly the same stuff, just in different orders. The 5th encounter of the Voidspire raid are the 3 bros that just helped us in the last fight. Not too sure why they're so pissed off now, maybe someone can help me out with some lore in the comments. Either way, this is the console fight of the tier, and I know what you're thinking, cause I was thinking the same thing. Console fight equals mechanic vomit, but this fight is not that at all, and it's actually one of the best console fights that I can remember. This is basically just us versus 3 paladins, and has a pretty straightforward mechanic loop. You kinda just wait to react to everything. Is there a giant circle on the ground? Drag the bosses out of it. Does one of the bosses have a bubble on them and are casting? Focus the bubble and interrupt the boss. Are there spread circles? Spread out. Are there soak circles? Soak it. Is there a bunch of stuff flying at your feet? Dodge your feet. Now, of course, there's going to be some specific details on how to handle all of this in the official guide, but if you know those few mechanics, you'll be alright. In testing, whenever we would bloodlust, 2 of the bosses would bubble for a few seconds, which was kind of funny, but you can mass dispel it, so I'm going to have to think on how to utilize this during the fight, or maybe it was just like a PTR bug or something. Still, any console fight that's not mechanic vomit is a win in my book. The 6th and final boss of the Voidspire wasn't really tested, so that one's going to have to wait until it goes live for the full guide. So now let's jump over to the second raid location, the Dreamrift. There's only one boss here, and that's Chimaeras, the Undreamt God. This fight is another step up from the previous bosses. Chimaeras is constantly spawning ads in this other realm that the journal calls Alan's Realm or something, that only buffed players can interact with. To get that buff, every so often the tank gets a big group soak, and several players need to stand in it to split the damage and gain the ability to attack the ads in Alan's Realm. Killing the ads in the other realm causes them to fall into the normal realm and start walking toward the boss, and you have to kill them again before they get to the boss and give them a huge heal and stacking damage buff. So basically just alternate soak groups and kite the boss away from the ads. The ads need to die before the boss reaches full energy, starting phase 2. In phase 2, the boss flies up and starts doing some fire breaths that leave a bunch of bad on the ground. Every breath spawns a bunch of ads that need to be interrupted, grouped, and nuked down. Any ads still alive at the end of the second phase will be consumed by the boss. And then it's just rinse and repeat. The next raid is located in March of Quel'Danas near Silvermoon. This is where bosses 8 and 9 are. The first boss here is Bellerin, Child of Alar. The main idea of this boss is to kill Bellerin, who turns into an egg, then you DPS the egg until it turns back into a phoenix. Repeat this until the egg no longer has health. Right when you pull the boss, it instantly turns half of the raid light and half of the raid void, and you need to deal with each of the mechanics based on your void light color. Light players soak the light group soak, void players soak the void group soak, and there's a bunch of mechanics like that. When the boss dies, it smashes down in the middle of the room and starts phase 2 in egg form. The whole time the boss is doing big raid damage with these ground explosions that have you constantly looking at the ground for your color. And if you accidentally get hit by the wrong color, you're dead. The phase ends when the rebirth cast goes off, starting phase 1 again. And the fight ends when the egg dies before the rebirth cast goes off. This was an awesome fight to play during raid testing, and I'm super excited to see how it plays out on live. As for the last boss, Midnight Falls, Blizzard didn't do any testing of it on PTR, which means we can't really do a preview of it, but our official guide for Midnight Falls will be out as soon as it's killed on live and we can confirm the best strat. And that's the preview. Thanks again to Rested XP and our supporters on Patreon for making these videos possible. If you're playing TBC Classic Anniversary, the Rested XP in-game add-on has step-by-step routes that tell you exactly where to go, what to pick up, and more importantly, what to skip. So you can basically just sit back and blast your way to 70. Use our link in the description or pinned comment for 10% off. Peace.